The meeting of the East Long Meadow Public Library Board of Library Trustees is called to order. It is now August 23rd, 2017, Wednesday evening, and it's 6 p.m. First order of business, I'd like to take attendance. Charlie Gray.
David Boucher.
Layla Johnston.
Melanie Manheim.
Diane Tiago.
Virginia Robbins.
Thank you very much. Let the record show we are convened and we have a quorum. First order of business, meeting minutes. Minutes for the meeting of July 16th, I believe.
Is it 16th or 12th?
July 12th.
July 12th.
I think they were distributed electronically earlier, Lila, and I see there's a copy in the handouts. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any comments, questions, additions, or corrections to the minutes as submitted? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Melanie?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for July 12th, 2017.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Accepted. We have no guests present, so there's, although there's an opportunity for them to address the board, there will be no guests addressing the board. Director's report, Lila.
I will try to keep
I'm sure I know you've been very busy.
brief. Try to keep it brief since the majority will probably be discussed at the plan at the end, but I just wanted to point out some improvements to the building for everybody. The women's partitions in the first floor restroom have been replaced. They now have working knobs, so thank you to DPW for that. On your way out, if you get a chance, take a look at the giving wall in the foyer. DPW worked really hard this week. They removed all of the old adhesive that was leading the plaques to kind of droop and sag, and that they put in their time. They worked well for a time.
Yeah.
And they have now physically mounted the plaques to the wooden parts on the walls. It's a huge improvement. It looks a lot better. So just on your way out, if you just stop by and take a look, you'll see that that looks fantastic. And we did have an emergency repair to the thermostat controlling the HVAC system in the children's room on one of those very sticky days in late July. Everything's fixed, and that was all taken care of. Printing and networking issues are no longer a problem now that we've had the thin clients all replaced for the public computers. Thank you to IT for that. And then just briefly, I really want to compliment and thank all of the library staff, in particular the children's department, for another successful summer reading program. I don't have totals as of yet because it's still August, but I just wanted to update everybody that for June and July we had 1,223 registered participants, over 60 youth volunteers, 17 total programs with 1,243 total participants. The library staff always put a lot of thought, creativity, and hard work into the summer reading program, and patrons and I know all the trustees really appreciate all of their efforts and hard work. I'd also like to thank some of our sponsors. We had significant financial assistance from the Friends of the East Long Meadow Public Library, the Masons, People's Bank, and the East Long Meadow Cultural Council. We also had assistance from Meadowbrook School. Their teachers and the librarian contributed. Cartamundi provided books that we distributed for the community read, One Book for All. And other sponsors included the Friends again, MedExpress, North Star Recycling, UMass Wind Energy Center, the DOI Northeast Climate Center, Fenway Golf, Shaker Bowl, Interstate 91, Texas Roadhouse, American Medical Response, and Chipotle. The fire department gave us a visit to discuss equipment issues, and other local businesses that participated were Starbucks, Walgreens, Rockies, Shelburne Falls Coffee Roasters, Pete's Sweets, My Main Squeeze Juice Bar, and Greenwich Sandwich. Sorry, I overlooked that. That's right across Maple
Is that-
Street here.
Is that two words, green/which?
I think so.
As they have on their sign?
I think so, yes. I apologize there,
There's a lot of
so.
people, a lot of people parked out in front eating at lunchtime, I know, so
Yeah.
that's succeeding. I also see
And,
now that they're selling hot paninis,
Yes. I've heard their
Which is-
salads are very good.
which is very, salads are good too, they're very popular. Excuse me, I interrupted you.
That's okay. And then just the last one is, of course, as always, the Mass Library System and MBLC, who provided us with items from Boston Bruins, the Pawtucket Red Sox, Friendlies, Yankee Candle, the USS Constitution Museum, the Eric Carle Museum, and the Big E. And I just think that the huge outpouring of support that we got from everybody participating, as well as businesses helping us put on the programs and the Friends, really made for yet another successful summer reading program for this year.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a wonderful list of sponsors and people who have donated, and I know as I wander around town and go into these establishments, which I do, and many of us do, all of us do, invariably people will say, how'd that event go, or how'd that special occasion go, or how'd it go with the children's reading program? Whatever the event was, the people who run these fine local establishments always want to know how it went. And I'm always pleased to be able to tell them how good they did go, and that their support is appreciated by us and by all of the patrons of our library. Good job to you, Lila, and to your staff on that. That's terrific. Is that about it?
That's all I have for the narrative part of my report. The financial report is going to look a little bit different this month. Munis has not yet been updated with our correct funds. So what I did was I went in and made a report like this. I don't know if people like this, if they don't like it, it's entirely up to you. It shows what we currently have in our, these three, our library-specific income generating accounts. The top one is our total general fund appropriation with the percent. Hopefully by next meeting, Munis will be updated. I can give you the Munis report again, or I can continue to do it this way. However you prefer is fine with me.
I defer to the majority, although I think I'm used to the Munis report, and I think the actual to expected, or whatever those categories are, is helpful, especially as we zero into the last
Sure.
quarter of the year,
Yeah.
of our fiscal year. And this is good as an extract, and I would agree, I would feel comfortable getting the up-to-date report just for informational purposes.
Sure.
Thank you. 17% used as of August 22nd. Let me see, let me do the math. Seems reasonable, doesn't it, huh? Thank you. We need a motion to approve the narrative report, director's report, dated August 23rd, 2017. Do I have such a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion
Melanie?
to approve the narrative director's report for the financial for August 22nd, 2017.
I'll make a second motion.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Approved. All right then, financial reports we've looked at. I assume there's nothing else under that, Lila? We can move on to the new business, and the first item of new business, and I know, Lila, you and you've been working on this with Diane. Diane was chair of the subcommittee, and I recall reading it over earlier, reading over the bylaws earlier, and they look pretty tight, pretty good to me. So what's your wish? Should I ask Diane, would you like to discuss what you've submitted, or would you, Lila, like to discuss? Why don't you take the lead, Diane?
All right. Well, basically, you know, what I did was I went through the bylaws, and if I saw something that I thought should be changed, or, you know, a little change to it, you can see it's highlighted in yellow as far as whether it is a minor edit is concerned, whether it's a matter of spelling or what have you. And then whatever input different people from the board gave me too, with regards to it, I tossed that in and also highlighted that for you to take a look at as well. So you can see on that very first page, I just happened to agree with one of the items that was pointed out, that if we're going to, you know, like,
Just, excuse me, I'm interrupting, I realize, but the reason we're reviewing these bylaws, these are the bylaws that allow us to operate within the guidelines of the town government. And since we changed the town government, it's been incumbent upon us to modify our bylaws. And we are now in the process of making those changes so that we will be consistent with the scheme that's been established and how we are actually functioning as a town. And so that's the purpose of this exercise, and that's what you've been trying to do. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
so
you,
excuse me
Charlie,
for
you know,
interrupting, but that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Right. What happens is for me sometimes it's just so automatic that, you know, that I've been doing that I forget to explain the reason behind it. But anyway, so that's what the first, those first pages show. What suggestions or recommendations have been made, and then what I did was just pulled those items and just rewrote it without the highlight, without the, you know, the lines going through, and so that's why you see revision.
This is so easy to read, it's scary.
Is it?
It's great.
Okay.
I did read these over. Is there anything that you would particularly like to call our attention to? I had one, it's going to kill you.
Yeah,
You
it's
could leave
quite
the
all right.
room if you'd like.
No, nothing kills me.
On page,
What would you like, Charlie?
on page 4,
Okay.
under the top paragraph number 2, there's a floating quotation mark there. It doesn't belong to another quotation mark that I can find.
Yeah.
So I think we should
Yeah.
just delete that.
Yep.
That's it, believe it or not.
Oh, wow. Wow. Jeez.
So I think it looks really tight, and I would just thank you and Lila and the other members of your subcommittee for the efforts on our behalf. Does anyone else have any comments?
The town manager does want to review, so she said after you vote or make further revisions, once you're ready, I'll bring them to my next meeting with her, just so she can take a look at them.
So
Well,
I'll
I would say it's not inappropriate for us to approve the adoption of the bylaws as amended, and then if she has any questions, we'll be more than happy to accommodate her
Sure.
questions or respond to her questions. So maybe, Ginny, how do you feel? Would you I'd look for a motion to approve, if you feel comfortable with that?
I do so.
Okay, so Ginny makes a motion to approve the draft of the revised bylaws for the board, for the East Long Meadow Public Library Board of Library Trustees, the revision of August of this year, and they will be revised as of, the date on the revision will be the date of today's meeting, which is August 23rd. Do we have a second to Ginny's motion?
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion?
No.
I'll just fix that. I'll just fix that
All right.
one item.
So
And, well, we're all
The
set.
draft will be approved, subject to the deletion of that extraneous
Yes.
quotation mark.
Mhm.
And the motion has been made and seconded. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it's done.
Now to the
Now
meaty,
to the meeting that we've all,
the meaty tone.
meeting, the item that we've all been looking forward to. And I would just say that this is, we're going to review or talk about the strategic plan. And Lila, you have done a remarkable job with your committees and all the people from whom you solicited advice. And on behalf of the town, I would just say thank you for your work.
Thank you.
You will recall back in the cold, cold days of December when you were out on the street looking for a job. No. One of the things we talked about when we interviewed, and that was frankly very encouraging, was that you were anxious to do a new strategic plan, and we were most anxious for you to do a new
Yes.
strategic plan, and you've done it, and it's great. It looks terrific, and I commend you and the members of your strategic planning committee group for the work, the good work that's been done. I know this is a draft, and I know that Diane has submitted a preliminary edit or amendment to the first draft, which is fine, and I think we've agreed to work off of that edit, I think, based on your message. So we'll all be working off of the edit that Diane put out electronically earlier. Couple of things, I just for administratively, I think it's a good idea, and I commend you for this, for your forward thinking, Lila. I think it's a good idea. If we can approve this tonight, I'd be happy to do this. But as in my experience with wordsmithing anything, there's always points at which you feel you want to get just the right word or a better word, especially a strategic plan. And if that occurs tonight, because we probably don't want to spend all night trying to wordsmith everything, but we certainly, as you suggested, have the ability to have a special meeting if necessary, other than our normal monthly meeting, to address the final approval, if we need to do that, of the strategic plan. And I'd be willing to do that if we have to.
Okay.
We may not have to, but I'll put that on the table early if there are any points of contention, and I don't think that there should be, frankly, but if there are, we have that flexibility. I also would commend you for getting it done early, and I'm going to ask you to talk about the process, but I know that our goal was to have approval done by the end of August, and the end of August, well, it comes in another week or so, and final approval by our board, by this group, by the end of September, with submission to the State Board of Library Commissioners for a deadline of October 1st. So clearly we're at the very least ahead of schedule, and frankly, I'm proud of that. But we are on schedule and ahead of schedule, so that's a good thing. Doesn't happen a lot, but in many kinds of governmental enterprises, and I guess we are a governmental enterprise, but that's a good thing for you. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Thanks to the folks that have dedicated so much time and effort on our behalf. So, the last thing I would say is that the reason the strategic plan is so important to us is not only does it give us a pathway, a path to run on, so to speak, for the next 5 years, because it is a 5-year strategic plan, but it qualifies us to submit to the state, through the Board of Library Commissioners, applications for grants that translates into money. And this is a vehicle that allows us to raise our hand and ask for monetary support on behalf of the library and on behalf of our town. So this is a very important key for us to start to unlock, or for us to continue to unlock some of the largesse of the state. That having been said, I'd like to, I know Diane was a member of your committee, and I'd like to turn it over to you, Lila, and Diane, for your thoughts about the plan, about the process that was followed, and what our next steps should be, if that's all right with you.
Yes, thank you. So the MBLC really wants to see a high degree of community feedback. That's their emphasis, that rather than looking inward at what's currently going on in the library, that we turn outward and ask East Long Meadow, what do you want from your library? And then craft our goals around that. The part that I would really appreciate the trustees' feedback, before I get to that, actually I want to thank the Strategic Planning Committee, which Diane was on the committee, as well as Darcy Kane from the Friends, Susan Grimaldi, Ron McCucci, Joanne Nichting. I have the list right here so I don't forget anyone.
Yeah, read them off, and,
Sure.
and maybe you can identify by description who these folks are. We know Diane, of course, is a member of our Board of Trustees, and Diane, I guess you were a former chair of the Board of Library Trustees at one time?
Yes,
Recently retired as a member of the school department staff, so, okay, yeah, I'll let you go ahead. Darcy, we know Darcy.
Darcy is our representative from the Friends. Joanne was our representative from Library Employees. She's the circulation supervisor. Dan Myers is the East Long Meadow High School librarian and town resident. Ron McCucci and Christina Cooper are both town residents and also users of the library.
Ron was a former trustee of our library, also, I believe.
Susan Grimaldi is a town resident, also a Lions and Rotary Club member, and Karen Decker, who is a Town of East Long Meadow department head. So we convened 2 meetings with that particular steering committee with the help of the consultant.
A lot of firepower in that steering committee.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. It was. Diane can comment on how positive the meeting was, a lot of appreciation for library services, and a great amount of energy and ideas about ways that the library can continue to meet the needs of East Long Meadow. And then with feedback from those 2 meetings, plus we had 2 meetings with the staff so that we could make sure that their ideas were incorporated and included. We then had a survey. I want to thank everyone who participated in the survey. The survey was posted both online on our website, on our Facebook page, as well as on the town website. Paper copies were distributed throughout the library, and we had bookmarks with the direct link to the survey distributed to some local businesses. After we got all of that different ways of community feedback and ideas, we then looked at the survey results, had one final meeting, which consisted of a mix of the steering committee as well as a few more library staff. During that final meeting, we generated the goals for library services, which are page 14, with objectives, and then a first-year action plan. And those are all components that are required to have by the Board of Library Commissioners. The part that I really want the trustees' feedback on, aside from the whole plan, is the updated mission statement, because that's a big shift from our current mission statement, which is very focused on what do we have as like kind of like a warehouse, which is fine. That's what it, at the time that was written, I'm sure that that's what the standard was. Whereas now it's a shift to how can we bring the community together, in a sense. And so that's included on page 3. And then I also included, so that you could look at it if you want, these survey results, which are Appendix A. Appendix B are the summaries from the various community and staff meetings, and that's what the SOAR exercises are. It stands for Strengths, Opportunities, Aspirations, and Results. And then Appendix C is our 5-year technology plan, because as everyone knows, technology is such an important part of what we do here at the library, both with providing computers and the internet for the public, as well as all of our catalog is online. So the mission statement would be a big change and a big update, as well as the trustees' involvement is needed in the first year action plan goals and objectives. So if you wanted to just discuss that, I look forward to any feedback or input that you might want to contribute to those. And again, it is following the model that the MBLC is looking for, so that hopefully we get approved after we submit the plan.
How many, my recollection is that you had over 300 responses to the request for a survey, is that correct?
Yes, we had 322 responses.
That's a pretty good response. And across all age groups, the statistics that you provided in one of the appendixes gave a pretty good spread of ages and of library users, folks whose opinion we value, and actually the people whose opinions we were specifically soliciting, obviously. So that's good. That's so I think I feel comfortable with the statistics as developed, as I know you do. Did you have anything as far as the methodology that might have given you pause or raised any questions? Or?
We did receive a high enough response rate that this will be a statistically significant submission. I would also like to let everybody know that I do have the full 50-page compilation of comments that people would type in, written comments. I have that. I can send it to anybody who wants it. I did not want to print out yet another gigantic packet of information for you. This was the summary of those results. Far and above, people are really happy with the library, so that's good. That's good to know. Part of that happiness means that they really want, and this was by far the #1 comment, they would like us to be open on Saturdays during the summer. That was above and beyond the #1 request, to find a way to have consistent Saturday hours in the summer. And that's because they love us. They want to come in, they want to have access to the books and the materials. And I included some of those comments in the actual plan so that the MBLC can see that we did ask people. I do have that too. If people want to look further into the nitty-gritty, I'll be more than happy to share that with you.
I recall that we authorized the employment of a consultant, and how'd that work out?
Very well. I thought she did. Diane, did you have any thoughts on her? I thought she did a great job.
Oh, yeah, well, it was great because, I mean, she helped guide us through the process. I mean, where do you begin when you're trying to do something so huge as this? It's kind of mind-boggling to the novice, but, and so forth. We were very fortunate to have such a good group as well, because she was able to extract a lot of information from different ones, and she was able. It did not turn into like a referee type situation, I guess, that she's had. I guess in other experiences that she's had. Sometimes there's too many people as part of your search committee, and therefore it makes it harder to do. But what happened, it just seemed as though different people complemented one another. Like one idea from over here would trigger maybe a thought from somebody over here. Great. And it just flowed, the day flowed. And she kept us going. We weren't going to linger on anything for any great length of time. So I thought she was very good and she kept us well controlled.
On task?
On task,
Really?
exactly. You know, we were on task, you know, and so forth. At our first meeting, you know, time is up. She kept us, you know.
And people will sometimes not give an answer to the director if the director is trying to facilitate the meeting, that they will to the consultant. So it's good to have that external person who she herself had over 30 years experience as a library director, has now shifted into consulting. It was great to have that external person who could know about library services, facilitate the feedback. I could then participate rather than try to facilitate the discussion. I thought overall it was a very positive experience.
Yeah, well, and I did it because I couldn't help but ask her. I said, now, in comparison to some other, you know, I said, you know, how did you feel? How comfortable were you? You know, and so forth. And she said, this was a very good group. We got a lot from the group. That's the information that was provided was very good. What our projections, what people's different projections were. What they'd like to see was very interesting. So we had really quite a combination of interests that were present.
So the consultant was pleased with the functionality of the group,
I'd say,
with the constitution of the group, and with the results that the group achieved.
I believe so.
And she has, as I understand it, done this a number of times in the past.
You're right.
So-
And that's why I wanted to ask her, because probably this will be my one and only time of doing something like this. So when you have somebody that has experience, it's like, okay, so how did we do? So how did we do? You know, how was it? How did she feel the flow went and so forth? And so,
Well,
great.
as I look at this, as I look at the folks that were on the steering committee, certainly Diane as a current trustee, Darcy Kane representing the Friends of the Library. We had an individual who is a supervisor in the actual library.
Yeah.
Person representing a person who's a librarian at the high school. A couple of residents of East Long Meadow. Three residents from outside, one of whom has been very active in service clubs in the town.
Yeah.
Department head from the town. And all these cats were herded together by Lila. So I think we had a wonderful, broad group of people who came together for a specific task.
I think this is great also for our new director as well, because it helps her to see and look also at what goals
That's a good
that
point.
we want to do.
That's a good point. Okay, so Lila, what would you like to do next?
Well,
Do you want to go, I guess if we take Diane's edit as a dropping off point, or as a jumping off point, just go page by page and see if we can maybe raise the issues and then see where we stand on time.
yeah,
Recognizing that we do have, at least in my own mind, the flexibility to go back and do the final edits individually, and then maybe get together or share our final edits and then get together and give an approval, say, in a couple of weeks.
and that's,
If that-
the
does that
temporary
make sense?
date that I put on here was September 20th, because
Yeah.
if we went back to the previous pattern of every third Wednesday in the conference room or the board meetings, now
Yeah.
that it's fall and everybody's back in town, that's what this would be. So we
Oh, so
could,
you would go, does that give us enough time?
Yeah.
I recognize that's 10 days before October 1st, so we can have.
as long as you would be comfortable, using this as the starting point,
All right.
maybe making suggestions by email,
Okay.
having a final
Let's-
discussion and vote.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Is that all right with you
Yeah.
guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
I, as you know, I'm always one to look at hard copy.
Absolutely.
Hard to believe, but
I know.
I Huh? You
I do
like?
too.
Yeah, it's easier
There's
for me.
research on that.
It's easier for me. Okay, well, let's do that. Then we'll race through it and maybe adjourn it at least an hour.
Sure.
With the idea that as I raised an issue, everyone will start to think about it. Then we'll think about it as independently and then come back together one way or the other, having thought about issues that each of us have raised. Is that all right?
Yeah.
And we'll do it page by page off of Diane's edit. And
The
I
first
believe
one's going
this,
to be your most
I
challenging.
believe this edit came out of the binder. Okay, well, let's go then. Let's rock and roll. And I guess mission statement, you want us to spend some particular attention on that. And
Just because it is such a change.
I would not agree, I would not disagree with that. I look on the bottom, this is on page 3 of your lucky number program, the proposed mission statement. My feeling is the current one, as you just said, Lila, is probably, it was a good mission statement the last time it was written, but it's not really what we want to focus on today. And I think this one looks a little better. I do have a couple of questions, and I'm sure everyone has questions on it. And I'm not going to look for an answer based on what we just said. But we can all look at the wording and wordsmith the wording of this with an idea to having it be, help me with the words, Lila. You said outwardly oriented, is that
Yes.
your word?
Yeah, and for example, in the survey, the top results for people, we were asked, what do you think about East Long Meadow, or what's your vision for East Long Meadow? Education and learning was their number one kind of hope and desire for the current and the future, followed by safe and welcoming. And so we looked at that, we being that final group that got together and said, okay, how can the library support education and learning and continue to be safe and welcoming? And so you'll see that a little bit in the proposed mission statement, as well as in our goals for library services that we'll look at in a moment, so.
Okay. Let me ask you, one of the words that we have had in some of our policies, one of the words that doesn't show up here is, that was in our original mission statement, which I really think is outwardly focused, is the word recreation. Did you struggle with taking that out, or is that just, in other words, we talk about intellectual, educational, and cultural needs. Is it inappropriate to add the word recreational? Because
Libraries are trying to get away from that.
okay.
Yeah.
Yet we have recreational stuff in the
do.
main rotunda
Enrich
that
tends
we're allowing
to.
people to check out as though they were checking out books.
Libraries are trying to use more educational friendly terms because the word enrich, for example, can cover recreational as well as educational components to what we do. And it helps to distinguish us from Parks and Rec. I think that what we're doing, what Parks and Rec does is important, but what we're doing is different
Will
from
we
that.
still be able to promote Friday movies?
Oh, of course, that's enrichment.
Well, Charlie, that's why I tossed in the word, enjoyment.
Mhm.
So that the library offers, not only just for studying, but also items for enjoyment purposes as well, rather than calling it to recreation, because I think of the recreation department
Yeah.
as basically, so in order to keep us distinguished from another department in town, I just
That's a good point. That helps me.
And that the word
Um,
enjoyment might.
Enjoyment is good. Recreation, I think about perhaps some of our homebound patrons whose only recreation is sitting and perhaps reading a book.
Mhm.
And they do that at home in the comfort of their living room perhaps, but it's maybe the only recreation they get day over day. It's a thought as we're thinking, let's think about that, okay? Is that all right? We don't have to work, again, this gives us some flexibility. We don't
Sure.
have to come up with the final wording, but the other thing is, certainly, we're looking at our town residents and we're principally focusing our 5-year plan on the needs and wishes of our town residents. And we should. We also service a significant number of people who are residents of neighboring communities, whether they be college students or even high school students, or certainly even people who just simply don't live in East Long Meadow. However, they're not the majority of the people who use our services, nor are they the people who we are principally focusing on. So my question is, do we need to add that last line, as well as residents of neighboring communities? And I throw that out as a question because I don't have a problem putting it in because it is an inclusive statement, but our main focus continues to be providing services, support to our patrons from East Long Meadow. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay, something else to think about. Anybody else have any other thoughts on our mission statement? You'll get some ideas, I know. And Cindy McNutt, when Cindy comes back, watch out. She'll be happy to have another look at this.
Excuse me, pardon me.
Okay, so can we move on to page 4? I don't see anything with that.
No, I just put a comma
Just some
after the word.
typos in there,
Yeah,
sure.
that's all. It was after the director.
Okay, yep, well, that's good.
Do you know what
Oh,
I'm
I see
saying?
that, yeah.
It's small, but it's in red.
I see what you've done. Let me ask you the question, Diane, since you've done such a good job. Man, I wish I had your abilities to read this stuff and score it away. I especially liked your lining up later on, lining everything up.
Yeah, yeah.
I could read it better.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question, and this is actually something I have, just a bigger question. It's a stylistic question. The second line, it talks about the strategic planning process. And then we go down to the third line from the bottom, especially the strategic plan steering committee. Do those words require capitalizations? Question mark?
That's a good one. Let's see.
All right, ask the question, we'll figure it out next time. I don't want to,
Maybe the strategic planning steering committee could.
you see what I mean? It's a question. I don't
The committee
know.
itself could be.
I don't know. Okay, next, we've already talked about the steering committee. I think we can go to page 6, the methodology. And I see your magic, you've worked your magic on this.
Oh, boy.
The only comment the only question I have is the same question, the meeting of the steering committee, caps,
Sure.
and then capitalizing the SOAR, strengths, opportunities, aspiration, and results,
Okay.
which provide for the acronym.
Yeah.
Acronym.
Okay. I like that, Charlie.
And then, of course, the strategic plan steering committee, if we're going to capitalize it in the
Right.
front, let's
Keep
capitalize it all the way
consistent.
through.
Throughout the whole-
Right.
Anybody else have anything on page 6? Page 7? I thought this was
I know.
Pine Knoll, you caught that, yeah. Pine Knoll rather than Pine Point.
Oh, did I put Pine Point?
Yeah, that's.
No, I know, but
You've,
only one is in red.
Yeah, I think that's the additional word for Pine Knoll, rather than Knoll Point.
Yeah, originally it said Knoll Point, and I just kind of knew what was intended, so.
So that's the change, that's good. It's good that it's in red for Red Sylvia.
Yes.
The question, the only question I have, and actually we may have answered it earlier, Lila, is under the local businesses that have supported us and that continue to support us year after year. Those people are very important to us. And if there are people that we may have inadvertently omitted in this list, my favor, I would favor putting them in. And this is a perfect place to give them a little bit more attention, care and feeding, whatever. Not that they're looking for it, but it doesn't hurt. And it won't hurt the next time we go
Sure.
hat in hand asking for their help and support.
Yeah.
And
Any-
just as a side, I included the Rotary because the Rotary came up in every community meeting that we had, that residents really want something done about the Rotary, which the police department is working on, but that's why I included that in the description of the town.
Yeah.
That was a sort of a wise, I like that because it was sort of a wise guy comment. This kind of thing I would put
Oh,
in.
I was surprised at how often it
Well,
came
just
up.
for people who don't have the opportunity to read that, but it was sort of funny, actually. Introduction to the town, it's the home of, where is it? Help me with where it is. It's in the history, isn't it?
It's in Ripley's too, isn't
It's in Ripley's, but I mean, where is it in the
It's in
text?
the introduction to the town of East Long Meadow where it says points of interest.
Points of
include
interest. Oh, yeah,
Heritage Park.
points of interest include Heritage Park, Centerfield, and one of the most dangerous intersections in the United States,
That is
the
true.
Rotary in the center of town.
I cited my source too.
it? But it's much better with the stop sign.
It's
It is.
it's
Yeah.
It
improved,
really
and
is.
kudos to our friends in the DPW. They're not only keeping our library looking shipshape, but also have reduced the hazard in going through the Rotary, which is right in front of our library. But that's sort of I thought that was fine. That was
It
funny.
came up at every meeting.
You could actually put
That's
it in
nice
there.
of
It
it.
was featured in is that the 50s or 60s, in the Ripley's
Yeah.
Believe It or Not cartoon
Mhm.
with the
They used- yeah.
seven streets coming together?
But they used to have a policeman out there
Yeah, we did.
years ago.
Until he got hit.
No, I don't think so, but they used to have one out there
Yeah, they
directing
did. They
traffic
did.
around 5 o'clock.
Especially when the shops let out.
Yeah, and when Milton Bradley
Milton
would.
Bradley, that's right.
Yeah.
I remember that. But the barrels are nice. I don't know what's gonna happen to the barrels when we get the first 3 feet of snow, but that's a
Yeah.
different question. We'll
For Halloween.
pray for spring. Okay, that's good. Lila, it put a little zip in it for me. I
Okay, as
enjoyed
long
that.
as you,
Thank
as
you.
long as you approve, that's
All right, moving. Sponsors, we'll think about sponsors. Anybody that you folks feel appropriate to recognize. I mean, we've all been around and have asked for help in the past, and that's a good place to put it in and brag about our local community involvement. That's very important when the Massachusetts Board of Library Trustees look at our town, they look at town commitment to the library. They want to reinforce our strong relationships with the members of our community, and certainly the people who donate to our community are symbolic of that support. On page 8, the only thing I had was, again, the question about the capitalization of the history of the town, capital T, town of East Long Meadow in the first line of the history of the town. If we're gonna do it there, we should probably do it in the middle too, where it says land to the new town of East Long Meadow.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have anything for page 8? Page 9, town governance. I did have some, I won't bore you with the wording here. I think it's important, Lila, what you've done here and what the committee has done. And that is to communicate the challenges we've all faced with adjusting to and accommodating the changes in our town governance. And that is to say, we've gone, as you point out, from an annual town meeting with elected 3-member Board of Selectmen and a town administrator to a 7-member town council and a town manager. And coincident with that, all boards and committees, with the exception of the school board, have become appointed boards and committees, appointed by the town manager. And you've communicated that very well, and that's important, I think, for the people that review our 5-year plan to realize that we are frankly working through this and trying very hard to not lose that which we've had, and that's the success that we've enjoyed as a library in the town of East Long Meadow over the years. We don't want our town governance structure to change the good that is our library. And we're working with that. So I think communicating that is good. I'd like to focus on the last sentence, and where adjustment to this major change is taking time for all town residents. And then the last 3 words or 4 words, I know exactly what you put in there, Diane, but I might modify that somewhat. We could think about that.
All right, that's fine.
Is that all right?
Yeah, yeah, and yes, I'm glad that you pointed that out, that it will be
I
important.
just don't want to be, this is a positive plan.
Yeah.
We should have it as positive as we possibly can, if we can, with the exception of the Rotary, of course. Thank you.
What is the population now?
Of East Long Meadow, 16,061, I believe.
Really? So it's gone up?
Yeah. In fact, I have it on, it's in one of your, oh, it's in here somewhere.
I think it's in the stats somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't pull it out off the top of my head, but.
Oh, when I wrote this, it was 15,270, but for our ARIS report, which we just did, it was 16,061.
Yeah, that's a big family moved in, I guess, huh?
How many were in here when you moved in?
When I moved here, that was almost 40 years ago. I think we were probably 13,000 then.
See, it was about 10.
10 with
when
you,
I-
huh? Yeah.
When I moved in.
Well, it's growing, no question about it.
There isn't much land left.
No, not much. Not much. Okay, I had I just had a couple of thoughts.
That's fine.
I'll put it in,
'Cause-
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'm with you?
Yeah. No, I
you're gonna
agree
serve-
with you.
You're gonna serve as the coordinator of these, if I type? I don't type, but I'll
You
type.
send, okay, I'll make
Page, I'm moving to page 10, whether you guys want to or not. I suppose if anybody wants to go back to page 9, of course, we'll spend more time. Carlisle Hardware Store, it was actually interesting. It was like Friendly's, and they had an apostrophe S on the end of it.
So it should
So-
say Carlisle's?
It was always Carlisle's
Oh.
Hardware Store.
Okay.
Just like Mooney's Hardware Store. Remember, across on the Rotary. That goes back. Okay. So Carlisle's apostrophe S.
Got it.
Okay.
Again, the CAPS question, library director, for example, I prefer to have a library director with CAPS on it. And then the CW Mars, and it's, on this page, it's CW/Mars, and then later on in the technology report, it's CW MARS, all caps.
Oh, it should be the
So
slash.
one or the other, and then the last thing on the abbreviations, and I've already said this, but I'll say it again. Where we use abbreviations, I always favor, the first time we use it, to spell it out. Central and Western Massachusetts Media Resource sharing or something, I don't even know what it is, I can't remember. But I'd spell it out and then put the parentheses, and then later on in the document, after you use it the first time,
Right.
then use the abbreviation. That's just style,
It's very good.
and it's easier.
Okay.
And then the STEAM, again, I would do that with the STEAM. STEAM, parentheses, science, technology, engineering. No, I always say science, technology, eating, arts, and mathematics. Science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, the STEAM program. That's something we can decide on. I just point that up as something we should think about for continuity purposes. Anybody else have anything on page 10? Okay. Page 11. Very first line there, plus a number of other, plus, I like the plus a number of other educational and enriching programs. I would change enriching to enrichment programs. And that makes it parallel, more parallel. And again, we can talk about that. Oh, I see. You've, what came out there on the second paragraph from the bottom, third line from the bottom, on the second paragraph from the bottom?
Okay.
Information and
It said a.
more than one
yeah.
presentation?
What happened was, the way it came out, it said talks on medical and health information and a historical, and that's where I'm saying.
Oh, I
We're
see,
talking
A.
about, we're
Okay.
talking about, so.
It wasn't
so
the
I'm
words.
taking, yeah.
It was the
taking
A, it was the
yeah, I was taking
article.
the A, yes.
Got it.
So I took that out because we're talking about more than one.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And then you did, you changed R to is.
Yes,
Boy, you good.
yes.
God help me. Okay, on to page 12 unless anybody objects. I liked, I'm going to digress here because this is the statistical part, Lila, but I think it's very important, and I like the fact that you led with it. And under the community needs assessment portion of the strategic plan, the survey results, the very first line of our strategic plan says, a vast number of respondents highlighted the positive role the library plays in their success in work, school, and life. Interestingly, over 50% of the respondents marked, quote, reference and research services from staff as the most important resource the library can provide. That's very significant, very significant.
And the consultant commented on that as well. She was surprised she's never seen that in any
It's-
of the surveys that she's conducted in the past 4 years.
It's remarkable. It's remarkable. It may be a function of the demographics of our town. That is to say, we have a number of retired folks, but we have a very highly educated town populace. I think, I don't remember the numbers, I could look them up, but I think there was over 70% had bachelor's or advanced degrees. That's unheard of.
It is.
A very, very well-educated town, and that's reflected in the results. So we, obviously, when we say we want to tailor our programs to accommodate our patrons, those are people that we should think about. Yeah. And the younger families moving into town, where 30% of the people are coming and bringing their children to the library, those are the other people we should think
Yes.
about. So, you've got a hell of a story to tell here. And thank you. This is very well done.
Thank
This is
you.
Very smart, very smart. Diane, I know you did some of it, but. Okay, anybody have, you changed the parking lot question from city to town, that's good. The question is, do we capitalize town? That's a generic question. I'll let you mull on that. Diane, you can fiddle with this. I moved on to page 13. You notice I picked up the pace?
Yeah.
I think David has a supper appointment.
No.
I made that up.
No.
Under the next page, thank you very much for making the vision ideas something that I could read a little easier and others could read.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
All right.
The question that I had is, what does this mean, non-judgmental, and why doesn't it have a asterisk on it? Does anybody
We can-
The
remember?
reason why it doesn't have an asterisk, Charlie, is because I forgot to put one.
Oh, for crying out loud. Oh, I thought it was more exotic.
But what happens is, I don't even know if you want an asterisk there. I just
It's fine.
I'm not being judgmental here.
No.
Non-judgmental.
What does mean, though? Okay, I'll forget about the asterisk. You decide whether you want it or don't. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What does
So
non-judgmental mean?
where these vision ideas came from were generated by the community participants. And by non-judgmental was the way that we summarized them, repeatedly saying that the library is here and available for everyone. That you can come in the doors, receive help on anything that you might need. No one's going to make you explain yourself or pass judgment on you, that we're open and available for everybody. That was the idea behind that.
That's consistent with the, with the National Library Association standards.
Mm-hmm.
That's what non-judgmental means.
Well, in this context, it was kind of summing up all of those ideas, yes,
Okay.
that we are
Good.
here for everybody.
We are a welcoming environment.
Mhm.
We do allow for our collection, inventory, our stock of books and periodicals and electronic media, tapes and so forth, without any judgments attached to it. So we believe in the freedom to read. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And I think that's a good use of the word non-judgmental. Now, if somebody wants to come in, I don't know, distracting the other patrons by playing a tuba, it would not be judgmental to say this is a quiet place, tuba is not appropriate. That's not being judgmental, is it?
Correct.
Okay, so when it says non-judgmental, it doesn't mean everything goes all
Right.
the time, right?
We would invite that person to come and give a special tuba performance at a different time.
And the
That's
friends
right,
can
please.
sponsor it.
Preferably the tuba could go outside in the parking lot, or maybe even in the middle of the Rotary at rush hour. Okay, non-judgmental, is everybody comfortable with that? Does everybody know what that means, even though I don't? I mean, I do now, but I didn't when I read it, that's all. Non-judgmental. All right. Moving on. I hear the page is turning. Thank you. Page 14.
And yes,
Wayfinders.
Wayfinders is a library-specific term. I'm glad that because I shouldn't use library lingo. So yeah, we'll take that out.
Oh.
Is Wayfinders one of those maps that has a "you are here" thing
Yeah.
on it?
Well, but it also can refer to, sometimes librarians call it either wayfinders or pathfinders, specifically with the collection, where it's a book list with a list of the Dewey numbers and URLs to different research resources. So if wayfinder, pathfinder, it can mean physical as well as mapping out the collection. So it's best to take it out of there.
Okay, okay.
So is improved signage and floor plan directories, is that what they were shooting for?
Yes.
Okay.
So is Wayfinders in the library term, would that be used, for example, to say that, I don't know, let's say, I might look up atomic bomb under strontium-90. In other words, it would be a subset down here someplace. It's like the old-fashioned card catalog.
Kind of.
Sort
Yep.
of loop back, and that's all done electronically now?
It's done electronically
And
now.
that's called a Wayfinder, huh?
Well, the Wayfinder would be if I printed one out and gave you a print copy
Uh-huh.
that you could, I use them more in academic libraries, to
So
be
I might
honest.
look at, on this shelf, Dewey Decimalized for atomic bomb, but I might look at the other end of the library on the lowest shelf for strontium-90. So the Wayfinder would link them somehow, or
Yeah,
it would?
yeah,
okay.
that's a good
See,
way
it's
to
a
describe
rare
it.
day I don't learn stuff. That's great. In fact, most of the stuff I learn from the library. You know that. Okay, well, I think that's a nice change. I like this whole page, actually. Vision, goals and objectives. 5-year action plan continues. Goal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on page 15. The only question I had here, Lila, help me through these, goal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have no trouble with the words at all, but why objective A under goal 1, objective C under goal 1?
Because it correlates
A under
back
goal
with goals
2,
and objectives.
A under goal 3.
That was kind of.
So
I
what these are
can
doing,
see how that would be confusing.
these are meeting the objectives, excuse me, these goals are addressing the objectives, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or whatever we have.
On this
or
page.
Objectives. These goals are addressing the individual objectives of objective A, this one, objective C, this one. Is that what that means?
Yes.
Okay. It's a little confusing, although I'm sure it wouldn't be confusing to someone who's read a few of these plans. I don't know if this is like a matrix management
Well,
chart
it's that.
without the matrix, is
So
it?
the goals and objectives, this is the most critical part here that the MBLC wants to see. Then the first year action plan refers back to the goals and objectives. I could add something like refers to goals and objectives or something up here. And that's why goal 1, nurture and encourage lifelong learning and literacy. We're only going to focus on one thing at a time, believe it or not. So that's why we're going to focus on, for the first year, objective C, which is investigate hiring a staff member dedicated to teen services. So that's why it says objective C.
I think this is fine, the information is perfect. I don't have one reservation about the information.
Okay.
It's the presentation, it's confusing to me.
Okay.
The Southborough plan that you presented to us,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the Southborough plan, has a matrix that has objectives, goals, and responsible parties.
Mm-hmm.
May even have a timeline in it, or timelines in it. Take a
We have
look at that.
timelines on this one. This is,
But it's a matrix arrangement.
yeah, I'm familiar with it.
That's not something you're comfortable with? Who we think-
I looked at their model, I felt that it was,
I'm not saying copy them, I'm just saying,
Uh-huh.
that's what I'm trying to communicate.
yeah,
That's what I consider a matrix, where
Yep.
you have a number of objectives being, a number of plans.
we'll put it this way. I wanted this to be as flexible as possible for us for our first year and not lock into saying, we're gonna get this staff member hired in year 1, and then in year 2, we're gonna be able to do all these
Yeah,
teen programs and
That's
services.
a good point.
Do you know what, but I'm gonna just tell you what came through my mind.
Sure.
Instead of, I was thinking of saying, like after that, the library will work towards goal 1, objective C,
Mm-hmm.
nature and encourage lifelong.
And just put it together?
Yeah, put it
Sure.
together. And then if you want to reiterate what that means in language, it makes more sense
Yeah,
to me,
That makes more sense.
personally,
Sure.
you know?
Mhm.
To me.
So then say goal 2, objective A, and put that together as,
Yeah,
goal to
goal
objective A,
objective
reduce barriers to
barriers,
access.
yes,
Sure.
To me, that.
yeah, that does, I can see how that would be easier to follow.
Yeah.
That's all because I really got kind of confused there with the, but if, that, that was just my
Yeah,
suggestion.
no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Because I also have to open up for the possibility that it might change.
Yep,
In the sense that, for example, we might not have the funding, you know,
that's correct. No, not
to
exactly.
hire that person.
That's right.
So then I'll need to then have a way that I explain it, and just so everybody's aware, I have to update this every year for the MBLC. So this year I'll file our first action plan by December 1st, and that's what this one will be, and then the following year, and again by December 1st, and that way it's seen as a flexible and living document so that we can make adjustments and changes as we need.
So let me ask you this, and with your follow-up documents, do you tell the MBLC what you were able to do
Yes.
in that particular year, and so now, okay.
Yes.
So they can see progress.
That's right.
Comparison.
Yep.
Yep.
I think that's smart, and I've had probably much too much experience with long-range plans, and they last for 3 to 5 years, and then they have to be redone. Have to be done again. So you're smart to do it exactly the way you're doing it, Lila, and I would commend you for that. I also like the wording, because you haven't painted yourself into a box on many of these things. And I think that's part of what you're asking us to do, is to make sure that we're presenting realistic plans,
Yes.
objectives.
That's right.
Yeah, that's very important.
And where you talk about investigating the possibility of such and such a thing, that's good. That's a good approach, because that's really what you're going to try to do. And sometimes it takes a little longer
Yes.
to come to a conclusion of some of the things that are very good to do. And it may not happen in 6 months, but it may happen in a year, or it may not happen in a year, but it may happen in a year and a half.
Right.
So the wording is very good.
Yeah.
I think for clarity, I would try to, let's try and think if we can agree to think about, because the goals and objectives are so important, think about a way to present it, maybe even augment this with that shorthand matrix that I mentioned earlier, or something like that, that along the lines that Diane mentioned would be helpful to me, something that would help me to get it squared away in my mind.
Yeah.
Because the objectives are all, they're not the same for every goal.
Right.
In other words, objective A doesn't refer, it isn't the same for all of them, you know what I mean?
Right. Or I could change around the order of the objectives.
Well,
So that it's all
you're not,
objective
go with what's easy for you, but I'm just looking to someone to understand it, and then to look for the detail, or to not get hung up on the procedure.
Right.
That's all.
I just was not, I have to be honest with you, it wasn't until just 5 minutes ago that I connected that page 15. You were pulling from page 14 into page 15.
Yeah.
So that's where I got lost on page 15. So,
Well, if that'll help you,
yeah.
it'll help me.
Yeah, well,
Melanie, how do you feel about it? You feel strongly both ways?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
you know, so that's what,
Now that you're seeing the transition of both pages, you do have to look at both pages to understand
so,
how it is.
yeah.
But
So-
because I'm looking at it now, I understand exactly where you're getting at.
I do understand better now,
Exactly.
myself,
Yes,
which is good. Just to follow up on what you said, Lila, even though the draft plan is frankly a draft plan, and therefore it has not been it's not been in wide distribution. The people who have worked on the plan obviously have seen it, as have the people from the staff who have talked about it among themselves, I'm sure, and the people who have worked on the plan have seen it. People from the Friends group have seen it and are aware that it's going on. Once it is approved by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, is it safe to say we'll post the 5-year plan on the library website?
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be available for everyone to see
Sure.
and talk about and think about, ask questions about. I would assume also that as we've done in the past, it would have a copy available for people to read in the
Sure.
library
I was
behind,
just gonna say, yeah, something like
in the
that.
circulation desk, so people could come in and pick up a copy, and pick a nice comfortable chair or desk and read it over and then propose questions.
Absolutely.
And the fact that you have reassured everyone that it's not a static document, that it is a document that will, as new needs are identified by our patrons, by our staff, as new needs are identified, we would try very hard to accommodate them in future revisions of the plan, which don't necessarily have to happen at a 5-year mark, although we certainly would want to do that. Is that fair enough to say?
I think so.
And I think that's healthy. Well, we've gone a little longer than I thought, but that's good. That's a good start. Now, does anyone have anything else about the draft that we've just reviewed? Anybody have any thoughts, comments, methodology questions about, or thoughts about next steps, that kind of stuff? I guess maybe what the best thing for us to do is what we've agreed to do, is to individually think about it. I'll call Cindy McNaught and ask her to think about it. Oh, I should say, is there anything that you'd like to talk about before I'll call Cindy McNaught and tell her what we went through and ask for her input along the same way that we're going to do it. And then we'll agree to share it. Would you be willing, Diane, to continue your role as the facilitator?
Sure.
Or shall we send it all to Lila? Or send it to you with a copy to Lila?
Either way is fine.
Either
What
one's
would you
fine.
guys prefer? Or send to everybody, I suppose. We got to be sure we keep Ginny in the loop.
Yeah.
Either way is fine with me. You can email both of us.
All right, or everybody.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, that's fine.
I'll call Cindy and tell her she missed a opportunity to get her licks in. Do we have 5 more minutes to look at the technology plan? And
And
maybe,
this was drawn up by Sharon at my request.
I think it's a good plan, and it's good to have it as an appendix. I assume it will go in as an appendix.
Yes,
Are you
in fact, that should
comfortable
say
with everything in here?
Appendix C.
I just had two questions. Are we okay with the format of this? Or do you feel like you want to modify the format any, or is this okay with you? As a technology plan, as a separate appendix to our plan? I think we have it's interesting, some of the words in here show up in our library policies document, which is fine, and there are policies. So I'm familiar with some of the words, and obviously there's a lot of stuff under technology that I don't know how to spell, so. But are you comfortable with the format, with this?
I'm comfortable with it, yeah.
The other thing is, I'd like to go through it again and try to make sure that everything's parallel, just for ease of readability. And I don't have any problem or any questions about anything else. Again, the abbreviations jump out at you sometimes. This is the one where I saw the CW Mars Since you're on the board of directors of that institution, you can figure out which one you want to use.
Okay.
There's things in here I've never seen before. VoIP, I have no idea what that is.
It's voice over internet
Oh,
protocol.
really? Okay with me. Did you know what that was?
No, I did not.
Okay, fine.
No, I'm just laughing along.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, let's look at that, let's agree to look at that. And,
RFID, anytime there's any kind, I'm just saying, anytime there's an abbreviation or, what's the term I meant?
I don't even know what RFID stands for.
Well, it would be good to have it
Perfect.
in there, and, but I tend to be like Charlie when it comes to all this abbreviated items that have special meanings such as STEAM and so forth. I like it at least once, the first time it's brought into a sentence or a paragraph. I like it
It's
to
good.
be explained
It's-
first,
it's-
and then thereafter they can abbreviate it for the rest of the document.
It's good technique, and readers appreciate it. I can't tell you how much readers appreciate.
These acronyms kind of get crazy, and sometimes they're, depending on where you're at, it could be this exact same acronym, but because you're in this field over here, it means something
Something
totally
else.
different. So I think it's,
What about DVD? Do you want DVD?
Well,
Written out?
no, I think we have that one under control, but some of the other items that,
we probably don't have to worry about TV or radar or those kinds of things. But some of these things that jump up that,
yeah.
for the first-time reader, it's a little tough. Okay, Appendix A is the actual survey results, and I thought these were instructive. These are really good, and these are things that, these survey results are wonderful statistics, especially given the statistical significance of the survey numbers. There's a couple of things that jumped out at me, and people probably have their own favorite stuff. And I had mentioned to Lila a couple of months ago the nature of the survey, where a couple of them, it was hard to choose which one, like where would you like the library to focus its resources, choose up to two. Well, it's like choosing your favorite child. You know what I mean? God, I wish I could choose three. I wish I could choose all four.
Yeah.
But if you go to the very last page of that, that's a terrific page for talking to. Actually, it's not. It's a demographic information on page 23. That's a terrific. The whole thing is pretty good, actually. The demographic information on page 23. If you extract the ages of the people, ages 50 to 59 and 60 to 69, that cohort, if you will, between the ages of 50 and 69, constitute 39.24% of our patrons. Almost 40% of our patrons are in the 50 to 69 age group. That's remarkable. Also remarkable, and Melanie, you'll be happy to hear this,
Yes, tell me.
is the age 30 to 39 cohort. 22.57% of our patrons are in that cohort. So that is the single largest 10-year cohort, 22.57. So if you look at, because if you look at the, I said 59 to 59, I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's 60 to 69 and 70 over are the 39.2%. I'm sorry, I got off the line. 60 to 69 is 20.49 as a 10-year cohort versus the 30 to 39 10-year cohort is 22.57. So you win on that, Melanie.
We win.
And what do you win? There's the question.
If we lump in all of our friends, however, who are 70 and above, that would be me, we win 39%. But that's interesting because we talk about programming.
Right.
And we talk about the people that we're trying to serve, and the vast majority of people falling into those groups, and that's important to keep in mind. And a lot of the people in that 30 to 39 cohort talk about the children's programs, and that's where we really have increases in circulation. That's an incredible part of our activity here. And those people talk for the young people that come into our library every day. And that's a big, big number, bigger than any other group, frankly. The other one that's interesting is the retired cohort. That would be us. Well, now you too, Diane.
I joined the club.
Day before yesterday.
Yeah.
The employed full-time cohort is 34.27%. The retired cohort is 32.52%. Now, that's sort of counterintuitive, but there are about a third of the people in our library are retired people. And about a third are working full-time. So that's why we get people requesting to have the library open on Saturday mornings or Saturdays during the year, during the summer especially.
Yeah.
That's absolutely predictable. But this, Lila, when you get to talk to the town fathers, this is what you can comfortably talk about.
Sure.
Because this proves our case, okay? Anybody else have any comments about the statistical analysis of the survey? Pretty good stuff, excellent stuff. Okay. Does anyone else have anything else for the good of the order?
I have a question.
Okay, Jen, what's up?
I'd like to know how the program is going, excuse me, with the home delivery.
It's going very well. It's very successful. We have about 20 different homebound patrons that we have different volunteers that they can either call and ask for what they would like. Sometimes they like for staff to just select things for them based on if they like mysteries or thrillers and kind of get a surprise each time. They can choose magazines, newspapers, audiobooks, anything that we have that we can bring to them, our volunteers will bring to them.
The magazines and the newspapers.
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, because I didn't think those were available.
If they're not, I'll check with Joanne and we should make them available. I guess with that, it would depend on how long they would be kept before the next time their volunteer comes back around.
The one that came to me is about 2 weeks. And if you have a shorter time period, you just call or
Sure.
call whoever's delivering it.
I'll look
And
into
that's been
that.
very good.
Yeah, it's people really appreciate the service.
So your experience has been good?
Very good.
Oh, that's
Good.
good to hear.
That is good to hear.
That's great.
And she's, in fact, I think she's moving.
Oh, your volunteer?
Yes.
We'll get another one. We'll get another one.
She can run, but she can't hide.
Yeah.
No, we'll find her. Anyone have anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a
Melanie, thank you.
motion to adjourn.
Any other
Second.
comments?
Meeting.
Okay. All in favor?
All right.
Okay, we are adjourned.